What is up, everybody? Welcome in to another edition of the Pass and Half Sports Show. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you, and with me, as always, is my group of companions on a very busy morning here. Joey Marks joining me once again, like we always do. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning, Philadelphia. Good morning, James. Yeah, it's a busy Saturday on the sports scene in the sports complex. You got the Sixers tonight, and you got the Flyers today. So it's going to be a busy day down at the sports complex. But we want to welcome in a good and old, but amazing friend of the show, Freddy Burns, formerly of Edge of Philly Sports. Freddy Burns. Good morning, sir.
Yo, what's up, fellas? Happy to. Oh, you even got like a little applause for me. I like it. Little sound effects. All right, boys.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I haven't done a show in I think since right before the Super Bowl week, or maybe it was Super Bowl Sunday. I forget, but yeah, we that was the last time I did any show. So I appreciate you. I'm kind of scratching the itch here. So thank you.
No
Yeah,
problem.
always a
Good to
pleasure, my friend.
good to have you on. We're going to try and cover pretty much the gamut. There's so much to cover in Philly sports landscape right now. It was hard for me to just be like, okay, let's limit it to one or two things. So let's dive right in. First things first is Philadelphia Phillies. Bryce Harper, who arguably is probably one of the top 25 players in the league, whether it's through popularity stats or skill, has had some issues as of late with Dave Dombrowski, the president of baseball operations for the Philadelphia Phillies. Dave Dombrowski was quoted and then retracted a statement about him not being having an elite season. So the first thing I have to ask, and I'm going to preface this, but because I'm not sure if many people know this, according to Sports Illustrated, an article that recently came out, Bryce Harper has been linked to a trade rumor with the Chicago Cubs. This is just a trade rumor. There's nothing definitive. I don't know if there's any where there's smoke, there's fire. But let me start with this, Fred. Do you think that this uh fracture within the relationship between Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies, Dave Dombrowski, can be fixed at this point?
Oh, first, I just want to say I'm super annoyed with this conversation. Super annoyed that we're even discussing, trading. But I understand, like, it has to be talked about. I'm not saying because of you guys. I'm just saying the Philadelphia sports team. Like Dombrowski clearly, got hit with a question that he was just being honest. He was not trying personally to take a shot. I think he was just answering honestly. And then, Bryce Harper, then we got him on the other side. That's like, oh, let me pay. Like, I love the criticism. I love all that. I could take all that on. And then it happens. And now he's pouting through the Athletic. Like, I'm just so sick of the whole thing, to be honest with you. Like, but to answer your question, I think they will make up. I think they have to make up. I don't think Bryce Harper coming off the year he had, which wasn't actually as bad as everyone's making it out to be. He was injured a lot of the year, still put up top 10 sats in certain categories. Was it not RBIs? Yeah, I think it was RBI. He was still up there in RBIs. And then he still played well. It was the playoffs where he kind of just totally stunk. And historically, he has not stunk in the playoffs. So, I don't think he's really tradable to get anything back worthwhile. So that's one. Two, I think he's the face of the franchise. I mean, this guy has come here. He's been arguably the greatest free agent acquisition in the history of Philadelphia sports. He panders to us like none other. He just constantly panders to us. It's perfect. So
Right.
like to force this guy out or cause all this is super annoying to me. I think they will fix it. I think the best way to fix it is to how about instead of like pointing the finger at Harper all the time, let's put someone behind him besides Alec Bohm as your 4-hole hitter. Let's give Harper some protection instead of Harper protecting Schwarber all the time. How about we go get Harper some protection? And I think that would be the perfect way to say, hey, it's all good here. And I'll go as far as saying I would fire Dombrowski to make him happy over trading Harper. I think Preston Mattingly can step right in, and we have an owner that's going to spend money. Like, let's not trade Harper. Let's go win a title with him. If anyone deserves to win a title in Philadelphia, it's Bryce Harper.
Now, I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Is that like with Bryce Harper? I'm with you. Like, this whole conversation is annoying. It feels like two teenage. I'm a high school teacher by trade. This feels like two teenage boys just arguing on the playground. It feels like he said this first. No, he said this. No, stop. Like, whatever you guys said to one another, knock it off. Hey, shake hands and let bygones be bygones. Let's move on like professionals. Let's move on like adults, But my feel, because here's the thing, is Dombrowski put his foot in his mouth. Then days later on Foul Territory podcast, he retracted the statement. But then 2 or 3 days later, Bryce Harper goes to Bleacher Report and he goes, Dave Dombrowski and the Phillies are picking on me. And it just felt like who can outduel who in the war of words. And honestly, I just feel like, all right, how can we structure this together? And this is where I'll really kind of chime in and agree with you, Fred, that I don't think the Phillies have done a good enough job protecting Bryce Harper. If this is your centerpiece, and he's been your centerpiece, Phillies before Bryce Harper came here ever since 2011, the Phillies went and fell into obscurity. And then all of a sudden you make this big splash. I go back to the quote that was mentioned, stupid money for Bryce Harper. You make that big splash and you bring someone like Bryce Harper into this organization, and all of a sudden your organization is revitalized at a moment where it needed to be, because it fell into such obscurity that we were starting to lose so much attendance that the Marlins were getting more attendance than us. So here's my thing. You have to protect him. Alec Baum is not the answer. I don't know if you can just fix it with one player. The 4-hole hitter is good because it'll protect Harper. But if the bottom falls out of the lineup even after the 4-hole hitter, that's not going to help either. And so that leads me to my next question. You brought up about Kyle Schwarber and how Bryce has been protecting him. Well, right now, we're not entirely sure if Kyle Schwarber will be back. The Philadelphia Phillies this past week tendered an offer, and this is usual for baseball for certain players. They tendered a qualifying offer for both Ranger Suarez and for Kyle Schwarber for $22.5 million. Both players are probably going to reject a qualifying offer, which is typical. But the reason why the Phillies put out that qualifying offer is someone picks up the tenure and signs that player, the Phillies get draft compensation. Now, that being said, I still feel like the Phillies are going to pursue Kyle Schwarber with a high enough salary that will keep him here in Philly for the next 3 or 4 years. My question to you, Fred, is A, will Kyle Schwarber be back as a Philly? B, do you think he should be for the price tag that he will demand?
I think 90% chance he's back. I think they've marketed him in a way and sold so many jerseys, and the fan base just is so in love with him. He's a left-handed power bat. He's averaging 46 home runs a season, 108 RBIs as a Philly. Last year was, what was the stats here? Let me just have them in front of me here. Because I spoke out of turn on Harper. I meant top 20, not top 10. And I meant OPS, by the way. So Schwarber last year was the best year of his career, obviously. 56 homers, 132 RBIs, 150 OPS plus, 4.9 F4. So, prior to this year, yes, you'd bring this type of guy back. But then therein lies the question, how much is it going to be? And what are the Phillies going to be willing to pay to keep him? And I guess it depends on the market, right? They had an opportunity to sign this guy before this season. They probably could have got him at a pretty good deal compared to what he's going to get, but they rolled the dice and they lost. I just think you got to factor in the age. We did see the deterioration of Utley, Howard, and Rollins, right? And we had them long term and watched that go the way it went. The only difference here is back then there was no DH, right? And we have a DH now. So I think you're basically paying you are paying for Schwarber to just be a hitter. It's not like you're going to be concerned with him and in the field at first base or left field and the wear and tear. Can he fill in sometimes? Yes. So to me, it's going to be, hey, the Philadelphia is going to offer a contract. Then you're going to have other cities and states. And depending on those cities and states, for example, let's say the Florida Marlins offer him a huge contract. Florida, $200 million is way different than Philadelphia tax-wise, $200 million. So the Phillies are in a scenario where, like, not only are they have to outmax the contract, they are going to have to beat whatever his take-home money is. So he picks a state with not as many taxes. That's definitely a factor. And if you're Kyle Schwarber, you've already won a World Series. You already are beloved by this fan base. You're going to come back to a standing O. It comes down to Kyle Schwarber. Is he hungry enough to win a title in Philadelphia and take maybe not less money? Less money. He's still going to get paid a ton. Or is he going to look at it like, wow, I could go to Florida, just chill, make way more money, be in the great weather, and just go off in the sunset too. So I think the Phillies may have to give him a 6-year deal to incentivize him. Like, hey, listen, yeah, I know the 5-year deal has been on the table, but we'll give you 6. And then as fans, we're just going to have to watch the end there. There is going to be a decline, though, because once that bat speed's gone, he's going to strike out all the time. Like, he's just going to strike out. Like, we've seen it in other years. So, you're paying for the next 3 years to potentially win a title with Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah, and you know what? When we talk about that decline, we talk about that player age and those contracts and that years and that period in which we're going to start to see a decline in this Philadelphia Phillies team dynamic. You look at Bryce Harper, you look at that contract and what's remaining, that decline is going to inevitably happen. Trey Turner, the same thing. Like these guys, we're going to start to see and be forced to see and watch the decline of some of these players, much like the Ryan Howards and the Chase Utleys and the Jimmy Rollins. The only difference between that era and this era is that how the GM possibly towards the end can get out from underneath the lingering and looming payday that is going to be there for these players, because there's a big difference between Ryan Howard's like $21 million towards the end of his contract and Bryce Harper's like 41 or whatever it is $1 million towards the end of his contract. Like, it's harder to unload that, and who knows what's going to happen come 2027 with the collective bargaining agreement and the price of a mission for certain teams, salary cap and what that'll look like, and if that'll even pass and whatnot. So there's going to be a lot of things in the next, I would say, 3 years. You're exactly right with the window of time that's going to change both in baseball and for the Phillies organizationally. I think, Kyle should be back because it's going to be hard to, even if you replaced him with 2 or 3 players with the money and just positioning. We talked about earlier with the depth. Can you replace 56 home runs and 132 RBIs? It's hard to do even with 2 players. You would have, and with the money. Could you bring in a Kyle Tucker and an Alex Bregman? Sure. Could they give you combined 56 home runs and 132 RBIs? Maybe. I don't know. That's hard to say.
And let me ask you a question. Are you going to get 56 home runs from Kyle Schwarber ever again, though?
That's a good question.
Well,
Like I don't know that we are. I think this was the year. This will be in the stat book. Oh, the greatest year of Kyle Schwarber's career is this year. I don't think we see that again.
Sure. But I think, as you mentioned earlier, 46 average of 46 home runs a season. Even if I got 45 home runs a season, that's production. And if I get 45 home runs a season for the next 2 seasons, 2 or 3 seasons with like 100 RBIs or 120 RBIs, that production is hard to replace. It just is, especially in this day and age. You have certain teams. You go ask the Atlanta Braves. Like the Atlanta Braves, they thought, okay, we have the bats, we have the talent. We can make up for certain people like Riley going down and losing Albies and Acuna being dinged up here and there. Like we can make up for that offensive deficiencies, and they just couldn't. They couldn't figure out the enough of the player depth to be able to make up that offense, and that kind of led to their demise, along with some really unfortunate pitching injuries.
We got a comment here. So Adam Cisa asks, good morning, Adam, actually. So he says, what do you guys think about Pete Alonso if the Phillies don't sign Kyle Schwarber?
I'll let you respond to that first, Fred.
I'm good. I mean, he's annoying. I feel like he's a dork. I just feel like he's a guy that's not. I mean, he has been clutch at times. I don't think we need that at first base. I think we have I will say Bryce Harper. You could make a Rico Brogna argument. Bryce Harper is the greatest fielding first baseman in the history of the Philadelphia Phillies ever. And I think we forget how bad it was with Rhys Hoskins. It was god awful. And there's been plays that Harper has won games and saved games just being there at first base. And then go back to Ryan Howard, even, who improved throughout his career, but he wasn't the greatest at first either. So, people always say Rico Brogna. I know he was outstanding at first base. But outside of that, can you name one? Like John Kruk wasn't a good like you know what I mean? He was okay, but you weren't like, oh, he's a Gold Glover. So right. I think, and I don't think Pete Alonso is a great fielder at first base. So, yeah, would you get the power back? But I hear that end of it, but I think it's just too much money for him. And I guess you could move him to DH, though. That might be the case you're making. But, yeah, I'm good on Alonso.
Yeah, I'm with Fred in this. If you gave me my druthers of who would you rather have, Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber, I'll take the devil that I do know versus the devil that I don't know. I would rather have Kyle Schwarber in this clubhouse where I know he's a verbal leader. He's that emotional leader. He's not the guy that's gonna rock the boat too much. And Pete Alonso just has proven to me, much like Fred kind of put it very poignantly, he's a dork. Like he just wants to think he's bigger than he is. And I
probably shouldn't have said that. Taking personal shots at the guy. I have no idea. I just watched him in the home run derby, and he's like it's a home run derby guy, and he's like in the locker room, like doing warm up swings, and they're panning to him like this huge home run derby, and he's like making these like he's like I the champion. It's like, dude, chill out, dude. Just go hit. Just do the home run derby. Like, did you ever see players in the 90s and 2000s warming up in the kit? No, you just sit there. You go up and hit your home runs. So I'm done. I cut you off, but I had to clarify.
No, I probably
should have said that.
No, it's fine. But
no, you're good, man.
I looked at it like you brought up the home run derby, but I'll even go one step further. The swing off for Kyle Schwarber in the All-Star game, like. Pete Alonso comes up to him, the first person who comes up to him and be like, well, congratulating him. And I'm like, all right, dude, relax, calm down. Like, for me, I think Pete Alonso is a talent. I just don't think he's as good of a talent, as people lead him out to be. There's guys that I feel like can be more quality pickups and acquisitions for this Philadelphia Phillies team than Pete Alonso. And look, again, if we're prefacing the idea of replacing Kyle Schwarber as a DH with another person that at DH, like if Pete Alonso, if you're bringing him in to be a DH, there's other alternatives out there. I mean, there just are. And so for me, it's like you can't focus all your energy on just a designated hitter because let's be honest, that outfield needs to get fixed. Like it just does. Whether it's
Right.
resigning Harrison Bader and bringing in JT Crawford or bringing in someone else to kind of bring it to upscale this outfield, they were at one point in time this season the worst percentage fielding percentage outfield in the majors. That just you can't sustain that. You can't carry that. So that needs to improve. So I get that we're all focused on the sexy position with the designated hitter and the home run hitters and whatnot, but we got to get better with fielding and we got to get better overall. And I think pitching, starting pitching especially, we are pretty stable. But I think that if we can't support those starting pitching with good fielders, it makes no difference. Um,
Hmm.
so I want to move on to the Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to move quickly. So we're going to shift from the Phillies to the Philadelphia Eagles. Your Philadelphia Eagles coming off the bye, having trade deadline. Fred, Howie Roseman at it again, doing what Howie does best, taking a pebble and turning into a gold nugget. So I got to ask you. I'm going to start with the first person, Jair Alexander, traded and picked up from the Baltimore Ravens. Jair Alexander was a Pro Bowl player in Green Bay for a while. He was a stud of a defensive back in Green Bay, then kind of given up on and sent away to Baltimore, where he didn't even start. He didn't even play. He was just a healthy scratch. Now he's with the Philadelphia Eagles, and ironically, we are going to be going against his former team that gave up on him, the Green Bay Packers, on Monday Night Football. My first question to you about Jair Alexander, do you like the pickup? Do you think that this is bet? I'll put it this way: do you think he's a better pickup than a Torrey Jackson?
I don't know. That's actually going to be to see. He's played 16 games in 3 years. He's always injured, and when you lose a step at the cornerback position, you're typically done. Like you gotta be up to par stepwise with these young receivers and elite receivers in this league. So we'll see then if it's injuries is the reason why he hasn't played, or it's just he's lost a step. With that said, I think it's a great move by Howie. Like, why not? Or what do we give up? A 7th round pick and we give up a 6th and get a 7th back or whatever it was. All late round deals that Howie, manages to turn into sometimes 5th rounders the following year, which then he parlays into other stuff. So I think it's a good move. It's a hole on our team right now. I've been yelling to I'm a Georgia fan. I watch Georgia. I've been yelling to the moon since we've drafted Keely Ringo that he stinks. He continues to stink, and they got to give up. There's a reason why he fell. He can't tackle, and at this level, he can't even seem to keep up. He's a good special teamer, but that's about it. So a solid system. Anyhow, there's a hole there at that spot, and I think, I don't think Jair Alexander's filling that hole. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's a good shot in the dark to see, hey, maybe we can get some plays in here. Maybe he has more left in the tank than the 3 other guys we have right now. The guy we got from the Raiders, the name's escaping me right now. And then Adoree Jackson, as you said.
Yeah. The guy I think
Bennett,
Ja'Cory Bennett. So I forgot that I have 2 Bulldog fans on the
I got to clarify. I'm not like a real fan, though. I'm like a fraud, and my real college football friends that hear me on here will call me out, so I got to make sure I make that clear. I am a fraud Georgia fan. Like, I just picked them up like way back just because they were the Bulldogs, and that was my young growing up team, and I kind of liked them. As soon as they started winning championships, I kind of stopped watching them because then it was boring. I liked when they were like not doing that. But I was watching them, and I tune in on Saturdays, but I'm not like, I don't know when the recruits are coming. I don't know any of that stuff.
When they become the new Alabama Crimson Tide, you're like, nah, I don't want to be that. I don't want.
Right.
I like being like the low key team that's like up and coming, And I wasn't excited when they won the championship. That's when I finally realized I was like, oh, I could care less because I wasn't like there was no jubilation like in Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, or Phillies championship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason why I became a Bulldog fan is because that SEC was like probably like even back then was exciting to watch too. Like even like the Alabama days and even like the Auburn and even South Carolina days too. I mean, I was just a big fan of the SEC more than anything. But I mean, yeah, I mean, you're right about Kiwi Ringo though. I mean, like he's been a real disappointment though. I mean, that's the thing I was really kind of annoyed about because I thought he would be better, at the same time. But I think for me it was just more that I think it's just probably he hasn't panned out more than anything.
Yeah, me, James, that leading into that draft, we were still at EOP, and
Yeah,
I remember me and you both saying that he was on our board,
yeah,
and we were excited when the Eagles drafted him, and we're like, wow, we didn't think that would happen. It was kind of like the N'Kobe Dean effect. We were like, wait, we could still steal N'Kobe Dean, and like, I think the amount of like pageantry that you put out live on EOP when N'Kobe Dean got drafted
yeah,
was said it all. But then, like me and you texting back and forth about Kelly Ringo, there was so much
yeah,
more that it was expected from him, and I just don't think I don't think the skill level panned out. Like he was, some players. This is the truth. There are some players that are just really good college players. They're really good collegiate players, but then once the speed picks up and the strategy, gets more complicated in the NFL. There's more terms, there's more, you have to think quicker on your feet. That stuff starts to catch up to a player that can't handle it. And I just think Killy just got overwhelmed. And I think sometimes you just have to live with the fact that you were a good collegiate athlete. You just weren't it didn't translate to the pros. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. So I want to move on to
Well,
go ahead.
before you go any further, I wanted to ask you about that, Joe. With Kiwi Ringo, I think the question I wanted to ask you is that is it possible that sometimes when college players go pro, like they lose a step?
Uh, I, Sometimes I think it's not losing a step as much as the game gets faster.
Mm,
Like when you're in college, everyone is athletic, everyone's got some level of speed.
mm-hmm.
But like when you hit the pros, you hit the best of the best.
Right,
And like that speed and the decision making within a split second like picks up. Now look, I've never played collegiate football, but I played high school football. So
right,
when you play high school football, you just have to do better than the guy that you're standing across the field from.
right,
That's all you have to do. You don't have to measure yourself up to like the best guy in the Catholic League or whatever. You just have to be better than the guy that you're standing across the field from. As long as you're able to do that, as long as you're able to develop your game better than that guy in that moment on that game on that Friday night, then you're fine. But on Sunday, it's different. There's a reason why teams game plan for opposing teams throughout the course of the week
right.
because it's not as simple as just line up and go.
Yeah,
Like, and I think Keely with college football sometimes it is line up and go, but having a little bit more strategy and being able to keep up with the athleticism.
mm.
But in
What
the
were you,
pros,
a right guard, Joe? You strike me as a right guard.
no, I was a weak side outside linebacker.
All right, all right.
I
Would you blitz a lot?
yeah, I was only a blitzer.
What?
Hmm.
What high school?
Newman.
Newman. Cool.
Yeah. So I had 10 sacks in my career. So
Wow, how about
uh
that?
so
I
Excellent.
sucked, so I went to Bonner. I didn't really take it too serious though, but yeah.
but
I think
so
I skipped I skipped a game one time to go drink in the woods, and that didn't go over too well.
no, I'm pretty sure it did. So we're gonna move to the next move that
Hi,
Howie
Coach
made.
Brannick, if you're watching. Hi.
So the next guy we have is a defensive end from the Miami Dolphins, third round pick, Jalen
Jalen Phillips.
Phillips. Thank you. I don't know why I want to keep calling him Jalen Price. I don't know why the hell that name's in my head.
So Jay was on this team,
Yeah, Jalen Phillips from the Miami Dolphins. Now, Fred, I'm going to bring it back a little bit to 2017, 2018. For Howie Roseman at the trade deadline, or a little prior to the trade deadline, traded with the Miami Dolphins a third-round pick for Jay Ajayi, and that was a key figure in taking us to the Super Bowl because Jay Ajayi gave some depth, some strength to that very vulnerable, weak running back room that we had in 17-18. Now, my question to you have Jalen Phillips coming in for a third-round pick from the Miami Dolphins, who's already familiar with Vic Fangio's system, who comes in here with like a revitalization. He's a young talent. He's only 26. He's got 26 sacks in 55 games in his career. This is a guy who is trying to revitalize his career. He's a rental last year of his contract. I got to ask, is this as good of a move as the Jay Ajayi move? Is this a guy that will be able to help right away?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, outside of them being Miami Dolphins, I don't fully, you know what I mean? I get it that they're from the same team, but you're going running back to edge rusher. I guess the injury, I know Jay Ajayi was healthy, but he was definitely running on bone. Like he had a little bit of cartridge left. And I think Howie giving up that fourth was like, you know what, we're just going to go win a Super Bowl here. And then this guy probably isn't going to pan out after this, but we'll just run him to the end here. Where I think Jalen Phillips, there's more of a potential opportunity to re-sign him and maybe grow on his. So he had the Achilles injury. Before the Achilles injury, he had like 6.5 sacks. And I think so far this year, he has 3 sacks, maybe 3.5, 2.5, 3.5. So he's showing that he's still got stuff left in the tank. And like you said, he's a little younger. Mm-hmm. I think it's a good move, a solid move by Howie. I don't like the big splash moves. If we would have got Myles Garrett for 3 first-rounders, I think it would have been pretty cool because you would have had kind of, if you sign him and Carter for the future, it would have kind of been like having Jerome Brown and Reggie White. Myles Garrett a few weeks ago passed Reggie White on like this point to their career sacks or sacks per, I forget what the exact stat was, but it was pretty cool. It would have been similar to that. But I think Jalen Phillips, knowing the system, can fit right in, like you said, and contribute. It's just a matter of if he's going to stay healthy with that Achilles, coming off the Achilles. He's a good player. He stops the run too. I think that's a key here. You need defensive ends that are going to be edge rushers, but also be able to stop the run. I think he's very good at that. And it probably gives him a little bit of energy because what was going on down there in Miami, was crazy. They're losing these games. They got rid of Vic Fangio. They moved on from Vic Fangio. They move on, and all the players are just upset about how hard he's working them. I mean, that just tells you what was going on down there. So I think it's a great acquisition. I think it's the number one acquisition because I think edge rusher getting to the passer is the great equalizer, right? You can have a secondary that's so-so, but if your pass rushers can get to the quarterback, all of a sudden now they're all pro. And, you watch the Giants do this way back, like, what was it, 2012 maybe, 2007 and 12, where they just doubled down on pass rushing. You probably couldn't even remember their defensive backfield, but, there was no issues with the D-backs because they got to the quarterback. And if we can apply pressure without blitzing, which is the way Vic Fangio wants to do it, you have more people in coverage, and now you have, an edge rusher here, and I think he's going to fit fine.
So I want to go back to what you were saying about the splash plays. So there was another splash trades. So there was another splash trade that we brought up yesterday on Fly Like an Eagle. And honestly, I think this was just as important, if not maybe a little bit more important than the Myles Garrett potential trade. So Sauce Gardner got traded to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 first-round picks. My question to you, if you had your druthers of picking up Myles Garrett and you already voiced your reasoning that it would have been cool, but you would have hated to give up 3 first-round picks. And I think we're all there with you. Now you take one of those first-round picks off the board. You go and you get a guy who's slightly younger and plays the secondary, plays a different position. And you could pair him with Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell for a longevity of 2 years of a secondary that is going to be very difficult to throw on. My question to you is, would you have done the Sauce Gardner deal if it was on Howie Roseman's desk?
No, I would not. I think you already have your lockdown corner in Quinyon Mitchell. You have Cooper DeJean. These are guys you're going to have to pay down the road, and you want to develop and have them get better. Sauce Gardner would have been a luxury, but a contract comes with that, and I know he'd be gone in 2 years. But to give up, I think when you get Myles Garrett, the intent is to have him long term and fill a hole at edge rusher, where Sauce Gardner would be essentially a 2-year rental, and then he'd be gone. Or you would lose DeJean or Quinyon Mitchell, which I really don't want to lose. I want to roll with them and develop them. So no, I wouldn't have made that move, and I think it's the right move not to.
So which move? So we had Michael Carter, who was picked up, and you brought up Jacorian Bennett. We brought up Jalen Phillips. We brought up Jair Alexander. My question to you: which of these pickups do you Brandon Graham coming out of retirement? Which of these moves do you think is going to have the biggest impact on this team moving forward this season?
I think it's going to be Jalen Phillips. I think that's the key. I kind of said why with the whole edge rusher thing. So I guess I'll just rank them. I would say, Phillips number 1. Number 2, I would say Michael Carter. I think that's a very underrated deal. I think I know through a friend a really diehard, like nutty Jets fan. And from what he said, that Michael Carter was like the guy there, like the great draft pick, their great slot guy. And then Aaron Glenn, they just don't jive with the way Glenn does stuff. So that's more to do with his not playing as well. So we may have a diamond in the rough there. So I would put Michael Carter number 2. You can move Cooper DeJean to the outside if you need. We just put him in the slot because he's very successful there. He was drafted. He could play the outside. Remember that. And then Jair Alexander might be able to play the outside. I think you got flexibility here, but I'd go Michael Carter 2. I'm going to go Brandon Graham 3. I don't think you're going to get much from Brandon Graham. I think you'll get, 15, maybe 20 plays a game, but I think the leadership's going to be good and, that energy he brings. And then 4, I'd go with Alexander. I think that's a shot in the dark. It could be awesome, but like I said earlier, there's a reason why he hasn't played on a Ravens defense that really has stunk up until this point.
Yeah.
Outside last week, I think.
So my next question is the upcoming schedule, the second half of this season. You got a couple, especially early on, the Packers and the Lions, and then later on the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Now, my question for you is, with the remaining schedule for the Philadelphia Eagles, and especially with the strength of what teams are out there in the NFC, and having the Packers have lost to the Panthers last week and the Lions having lost to the Minnesota Vikings last week, some of that has changed. My question to you is, what team in the NFC do you fear for this Eagles team to oppose this Eagles team moving forward?
In the NFC?
Yeah.
Okay, NFC specifically. I think it's without question the Detroit Lions. They have solid coaching, a great head coach that manages well. They have so many weapons on offense that I feel like our offense would have to match that. And I don't know that we're there yet. I think we're solid and we have the weapons and we've grown a little bit in the pass game. But at the same time, though, we could grind it out. If our run game is going, then we can match that and kind of mitigate them having as many possessions and win that way. So I'm not saying we can't win. I think we can beat the Lions, and we'll see in a couple weeks here. But I think the Lions are hungry. I mean, they really want it. Like, we just won the Super Bowl. They've been knocking on the door, and that hunger is probably a little more than ours. But I think overall we have a better roster and team, especially on the defensive end, that ultimately we would probably beat them. I think home field is going to be a big factor. Playing in that dome in Detroit, And I know that the Commanders were able to beat them last year, but I think that was good coaching as well, and a quarterback that was ready for the moment. Not that we won't be ready for the moment, but I think that was a factor. Is this game going to be outside in the playoffs at the Link in the cold, or is this game going to be indoors in Detroit? And next week, not past Green Bay, the following week, that's a big tiebreaker game that we have, and we'll see how we shake out. But, Amon-Ra St. Brown, you got Gibbs, Montgomery, Jamison Williams, the tight Laporta. Jared Goff is playing, proven to be a really good quarterback in this league. Some say, they call Hurts a system quarterback too. So both of them kind of are always trying to prove that they're better, but they keep winning. All they do is keep winning, both of them. So it's going to be get pressure on Goff, though. Like you said, the edge rush. Right. And they don't have anything.
So that leads me to my next question. This past week, the MVP votes have gone out, and the top 5 candidates have come out, and Jalen Hurts is up there in MVP votes. Now, my question to you, Fred, is Jalen Hurts, in your mind this season, an MVP candidate, and do you think he would win it?
I don't know that he would win it, but I think he is certainly an MVP candidate. I mean, let's call the award what it is now. It's amounted to the award goes to the quarterback on the team that's top 1 or 2 in the NFL. I mean, I don't agree with that, but I think that's what the award is. And, as much as the Hurts naysayers continue to knock him down because of certain flaws he has, I think you got to double down on his strengths. A 15-1 touchdown to interception ratio, that's outstanding. You know what I mean? And that's what you want out of a quarterback through all this turmoil and this, drama with AJ Brown and the cornerback position, and is Saquon cooked and all this mess on the outside, even through his entire career. What has been the one constant? Jalen Hurts and his way of doing things and keeping the main thing. And I think he's the most valuable player on the Philadelphia Eagles as a leader. And I think he's certainly in the MVP conversation. I mean, what's he, 15-1? The Eagles are 16-2. He has 20 total touchdowns here. That's first. He ranks 1 in total touchdowns. And then you're going to have the tush push people. Only 3 of them TDs are via the touch push. So 17 touchdowns has nothing to do with the touch push here. I think his athleticism, he's a dual threat quarterback. And, at times he's very conservative, but that is something I'd rather have. Josh Allen is probably a better quarterback than Jalen Hurts, definitely, as far as throwing but he takes chances, and there's opportune times that he turns the football over that Jalen Hurts doesn't turn the football over. Mm-hmm. Jalen Hurts has been to the Super Bowl twice and won once. Josh Allen is yet to get to a Super Bowl. And I'm not saying that's the only factor, but I'd much rather have a quarterback that's not in a shootout and a quarterback that's going to be conservative and pick his spots than a guy that's going to turn the ball over. So I think he's certainly – I don't know that he's going to win it because they're going to say, he can't throw. He can't do this. He can't do that. Jalen Hurts has proven that he can make throws, proven that he can make reads. It's just there's that games where he gets fixated on certain things. It's a progression issue, yes. But I think him under center has helped him. And, I think this year it's been a challenge because the offensive line has been in disarray. So a lot of the reads he's making, he's not making them calmly like he normally is.
So let's get down to brass tacks with Jalen Hurts' next opponent. Monday Night Football, Green Bay Packers, one of the lead teams that was trying to ban the tush push in Lambeau Field, 30 degrees, winds out of the west at 20 miles an hour possibly. It's going to be cold, and it's going to feel like football weather in Green Bay. What do you see happening in the game, and what is your score prediction?
I think the weather is going to be a factor. I think it's been not really cold here, so I don't think they've been able to practice in it or be ready for what they're walking into, where typically like you get a gradual, like, all right, now it's 40 degrees, now it's 30, 50, 40, 30. And then you're kind of like bodies adapt to it. I think we're going like from like 65, 70. It's got a little colder this week in the area, but nothing close to just jumping into like freezing cold weather at Lambeau. I think the weather is certainly going to be a factor. And I think the Eagles will lose on Monday night to the Green Bay Packers. I don't think they're going to run the gamut. I don't think Super Bowl teams run the gamut. I think it will be a close game. I think the Packers are coming off of a tough loss here. I don't like the word must win, but this is a very important win for them, because if they lose this, now we're talking, do the Packers make the playoffs potentially? We know they'll make a run, but I think this is just a very, very big game for them. The one thing with the Eagles, though, I'll say, Nick Sirianni's undefeated after a bye. Not only do we have a bye week, we have a long bye. You get the extra time off with it being a Monday night game. So the Eagles should be super prepared. My gut is telling me we're going to have a loss here, and that this undefeated streak for Sirianni's got to end at some point. He's not going to do that his entire career, and I think this is going to be one of them games. A little bit of rust too.
Well, rest versus rust. Yeah, I can kind of understand that. All right, so let's move on to it's kind of like a twofer here. I wanted to, I know you, Fred. You're a big Sixers fan. You're a guy that is very passionate about them, and I know you keep up with the Flyers and all that. So we're gonna do a kind of a twofer. So both the Philadelphia 76ers and the Philadelphia Flyers have actually gotten off to a surprisingly better start than what expected. I'm going to start with the Sixers first.
From who? Expectations from who?
I think the vast majority of fans, because I don't think...
the media who then makes the fans think one way or the other.
Well, having 28 wins last season for the Sixers that's not the media, that's the facts. We
just go ahead. Sorry, I'm
getting
nutty.
I get it. I'll let you have your point to cook. But
I know, I'm
like
being rude. Sorry.
No. It's perfectly fine. My feeling is that I still think, let me just go on record so you're aware. I think that the Sixers and the Flyers will both make the playoffs. I think that both teams are going to take a major step forward in comparison to what media and fans and some critics believe these teams are. Because honestly, I think the rosters are built to be good teams, quality teams. Now, I'm going to start and let you have your stage. With the Philadelphia 76ers, what do you think has been the biggest bright spot and why do you think there's this big seismic change, especially with winning? Because now they're finishing games, especially close games. What do you think has been the bright spot, and why do you think this team is different this year in comparison to last year?
I think number one is injuries. They were injured last year. Everyone was. And we basically ran out like a process style squad for a majority of the year. So that's one thing. You have a healthy team of NBA players on the court this year that would contribute, on our NBA roster. The second is, I think the youth move. Well, no, I don't even want to say the youth. The maturation of Tyrese Maxey. He continues to take steps further. He was playing hurt last year, and I just think, he continues to take the next step, and he'll continue to do that. Piggybacking off that, the youth movement and VJ Edgecombe. I think the losing last year, being able to draft him and have a guy that's not only talented, but has the work ethic of Tyrese Maxey has now meshed. You know what I mean? So, and Jared McCain has the same work ethic. So now we're kind of building a culture based on grind and work out every day. Like Maxey had the comment, I was in at 6 a.m. He challenged whoever to come play him one on whatever it was. He was trying to make it so that people get in the gym early, much like the greats do. You always hear them stories about the greats getting in there early. So, and then VJ shows up ready to battle, and then Wofford was there with them as well. I just think, that's the culture's changing in that essence. And now you have a youth movement growing without going into a rebuild, which is pretty awesome. So you still have your veterans on the roster, but now you have a team that's young, can play regular season ball. They're not going to win 50 games with these young guys, though. They're going to need these vets to come back to actually win games because teams are going to adjust. They're not going to outrun the other teams. Eventually other teams are just going to beat them because you're not going to outwork them. You can't win games 140 to 135. You can't go to double OT against the Washington Wizards and think like, oh, this is a good team. You know what I mean? They're 5-3-1. We've seen that against the Bulls. They fell off there. Huge, just fall apart, and then not have the energy to come back on a back-to-back. You see VJ Edgecombe starting to hit. You got to remember, the VJ played in college. Where they play 25 games, 30 games. Yeah. He's got an 82-game season ahead of him, and you already saw him on back-to-backs. He's already like, oh, wow. These other players are he's trying, but like the other players just got an edge on him because he's just not used to it. So I think I rambled that answer there, but it's a multi-question answer.
Yeah.
A multi-answer question.
So, for me, James, Mitch brought it up on Fly Like an Eagle yesterday. And it was kind of subtle about like Dave Dombrowski and Daryl Morey. And look, I've been a critic of Daryl Morey for a bit, but I got to give Daryl Morey, him his due in one way. Fred brought Fred brought it up, and I think Dave Dombrowski could kind of take a note from Daryl Morey. He is bringing in a youth movement without having to deconstruct too much. He's got veterans that he can rely on for a limited amount of time. I mean, think about this. You have Joel Embiid on a minutes restriction, whether it's just for the beginning of the season or throughout the whole season. 20 minutes of a minutes restriction for Joel Embiid. If this guy gives you 20 to 25 points, it may not seem like the old Joel Embiid, but guess what? We have to get past that. We have to get past the fact that this is a transition moment where the youth movement is rising and the veterans have to be role players. Guys like Paul George and Joel Embiid, as much as they get paid, we got to put that aside. We got to put aside what they were able to do back in their heyday. We have to put aside all of that and understand if they can fulfill roles, successful roles on this team with this youth movement rising. This is the way that you transition a team to still be relevant, to be a contender without having to deconstruct everything else. This is why I'm saying I think that Dave Dombrowski needs to take a page out of Daryl Morey. When we talk about what Bryce Harper needs and what the Phillies need, you got the Phillies that are at like a point with their budget that it's just absurd. They have some youth in Aiden Miller and JT Crawford. Maybe there needs to be a youth movement to transition. Have Bryce Harper and Trey Turner be the Joel Embiid and Paul George. Now, with Daryl Morey and the 76ers, you have Tyrese Maxey's definitely taking a step forward. 35.6 points average points per game. He's one of the scoring leaders. A lot of people who were critics, and Fred, this is where you came in with your media, and you were absolutely on point, that the criticism about the Sixers from the media is that, and I'll call them out because that's what I do, Spike Exkin on 94 WIP basically said that there is no way that a 6-foot guard can carry a team and be the centerpiece of a contending team. Well, guess what, Spike? He is doing just that. He's doing that not just this year, but he did it last year. Yeah, it looked record-wise like it was. As Fred pointed out earlier, injuries did not help him. Other efforts and other turmoil in the locker room did not help him. But this is a guy that, regardless of that, still has the Mamba mentality to keep pushing forward. Now, this is what I'll ask going forward, Fred. This is my next question to you. Do you think that Tyrese Maxey has the makeup to sustain some of this success that he's had early on this year throughout the course of the season. I'm not saying he'll do 35 a game, but this is already a guy that's being talked about in MVP conversations. It may be too early, but use his all body of work if you have to.
Do I think he can sustain it? Yeah. I mean, I think he's puts in the work and continues to get better. That was like, and just a quick credit to Daryl Morey as well. I think he gets the most underrated thing about Daryl Morey is his ability to draft. He finds talent. He found Kyle Lowry when Kyle Lowry was averaging like 3 points a game. Traded the top. It was Rafer Alston, I believe, was the point guard for the Rockets. And they were in the middle of a contender race. He traded him and got Kyle Lowry, and people were up in arms. And then, lo and behold, this is what Kyle Lowry actually became. He finds a guy like Quentin Grimes on a deal that look how good he's looking. So Morey is a great basketball mind that identifies talent. His issue is he gets fixated on these stars because he thinks that's the way you have to win because he watched it start with LeBron and then the Warriors adding KD. But like you forget the Warriors drafted majority of that. Anyhow, that's his issue, the star fixation. But to answer the Maxey question, I think he can because he's a great draft pick. He started out as a projected lottery that fell to the 2021 maybe with us, and we draft him, and then he starts out as a six-man type guy. And then, he proved that he could crack the starting lineup in the playoffs as a rookie, even though he failed a little bit, but he had some success. And then he went from a six-man guy to a starting point guard to an all, a potential all. And now like he's in the MVP categories. I think he can sustain it. Now to stay at that MVP level, he is going to have to average 35 points per game. Like that's what he's going to have to do because to Spike's point, that is his hindrance. He is 4 feet lower. He's 6'2". I don't think he's 6 foot even, like 6'2". So like, let's compare him to last year's MVP, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, who's 6'6". That's 4 inches. That's a big difference. So a lot of times Maxey go into the hoop when he drives, you'll see him like not fully go in because he's kind of fading sometimes. You saw it at the end of that Bulls game where he missed that layup off the glass because he knows his shot's going to get blocked. So he has to adjust. So that is a factor in him sustaining it, but I just think he's going to find ways to do it. And you're already starting to see him get calls a little bit where like he wasn't getting calls his other years. So as he starts to get more calls from the refs, that's going to help him too as he earns his keep. But I think he can.
So another team that is striving forward, especially because of young talent, is the Philadelphia Flyers. Matvei Michkov, Trevor Zegras. You have Owen Tippett. You have Tyson Forrester, Bobby Brink. You have a lot of these. Dan Villard. Like you have a lot of these guys that are youthful talent that are kind of the bright spot. And right now the Flyers are trending upward. We have been waiting for this rebuild to kind of show its merit, especially with the draft picks and the free agent signings, some of the trades and all of that. Fred, I got to ask, what do you think is the bright spot for the Philadelphia Flyers this year? And do you think that this trend for the Flyers and their winning ways can continue?
I guess the number one bright spot for me is Trevor Zegras. Acquiring him is, I feel like for years it's just been, and let me just preface this, like I never played hockey. So like the other three sports, I can identify things like on the court or field that like I just know, where like hockey, I don't know those like ins and outs. Like, did he take the right angle? Did he check correctly? Should he have done this? Should he have done that? Like, I just don't have knowledge of that stuff. I played hockey, roller hockey as a kid, doing fun. Like I played the sport, but not at the level where you get coached on it. So there's some things I just don't have. So just me from that perspective, I feel like the last 5-10 years, and I know we haven't put the best product, we're always slower. It always feels like there's like this guy skating around that's like just above everyone else, where I think, Trevor Zegras brings almost a breath of fresh air watching him play hockey on the ice. I've watched just about every game so far, and they're exciting. He moves around. I think like he reminds me. I'm not saying he's like Danny Briere because they're different players, but like as far as like that, almost he's not a superstar because Danny Briere wasn't a superstar, but he's a star, all-star type level guy that it's just fun to watch. So I think that's been the number one thing, and I think bringing him in has also shown a step in management to move to the next step, along with the head coach Rick Tocchet. You know what I mean? Bringing in, like, because Rick Tocchet isn't coming here for a rebuild. And shout out to Torts for coming here and going through that. He knew that's what it was going to be. I don't think he knew it was going to be as bad last year. Hence, he moved on and they kind of parted ways. I know he technically got fired, but the comments from Torts were kind of saying he was mentally checked out anyhow. So, like, I think we've seen a move towards that way, and you're seeing that in the play. But they're still the same. You know, they're going to go through their ebbs and flows. You know, I think they had 33 wins last year, maybe 39 losses. You saw 2 games where, and I think Tocchet used the word, they don't want to be in the tough ice. They're skating around in the easy ice where they're not grinding it out and getting in physical contact, blocking shots, or that grind mentality, which is what they gotta elevate to the next step. But I agree with you, Joe. I do think they're going to make the playoffs this year, and I think at the deadline, you may see a move to, you know, they're not going to go get an aged veteran, but they're going to, whatever they bring in is going to make them better. Assuming that their record holds up, you know, they're 10 games under 500. I think Briere will make another move to bring in young talent or draft picks, but I'm excited to watch hockey again. And a goaltender would be a shutdown goaltender would be a good move, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Vidard has done a serviceable job. I think much better than what we had last year, which was a very much more uncertainty. But you gave a answer to one of my questions. I'm going to ask it in the same sense. So you have the Flyers making the playoffs this year. I do as well. My question to you is the Philadelphia 76ers. Do they make the playoffs? And even bigger question, do they make it out of the second round?
So if you had to pick between the two, I would say it's like a foregone lock. Like there is no way that the Philadelphia 76ers do not make the playoffs. Like if they don't make the playoffs, it would be like an insane thing to me. Like insane. They didn't make it last year because they were injured and banged up. Like even with Paul George and Embiid, if they're semi-healthy, like they're enough to beat the bottom teams to do a play in it at the very least. But I'm talking top 8 seed. I guess you can't count it as making the playoffs if they're the 8 seed and they lose to the 9 or 10. I kind of don't even like this play-in thing. Like you should get rid of it. Like go back to the 8 seed. But I think they're a top 6 seed. They certainly make the playoffs. I think they may battle for a top 3 seed once you get Paul George and Embiid back. And I think not only do they, and I posted this before the run, and I know it's a hot take, but I think it can happen because I like Kelly Oubre. I like Quentin Grimes in the role he's in. And I love the draft pick of EJ Edgecombe. And I think Embiid, once he gets healthy enough and can play defense, not offense, defense at the level we know he can. Paul George is also a two-way player. I think it's underrated thing about Paul George is his defense. That sets us up for a playoff team that can make a run. And I think your Philadelphia 76ers in a weak East will make an NBA Finals appearance this year. And I said it before.
Wow.
And I'm not saying it like to be like a hot taker. Like I just think the pieces are there. I think they have the best coach in the Eastern Conference. And barring injury, which I think is a big question, even an Embiid injury, I think we can manage through. I think a Paul George injury would be worse. I think he's the perfect 4 right now to put on the floor. You have a 4. He doesn't need the ball. He needs the ball in his hands to like put up crazy numbers. But like you saw it in Los Angeles, you had Harden and Kawhi were ball dominant. He kind of was in the corner. I'm sure that's not the role he wants to be in. I don't want him to just sit in the corner either. But I just really think you have the pieces here, and I think you're maybe the rumors are like, hey, you see a clear difference in styles when Embiid's on the floor. It's a clear difference. And regular season ball, I agree with most, but you're going to need a center That's not Bona. Like Bona, everyone gets excited about Bona because he had 5 blocks in the fourth quarter of a game against the Wizards, and they went to double OT. He was a turnstile for 3 quarters. You know what I mean? For 3 quarters prior to that. So like, as much as everyone gets excited with Embiid off the floor because the turnovers and all that, I get that. But like, you don't just trade. Like, we're not just going to trade them and it's going to be fine. They'd be you need to have that, especially when the game goes to half court ball. Now we need to grow upon it. And I think we've seen in games, Embiid is learning to take the double team on and dish. Against the Boston Celtics, he took the double team, kicked it out to Edgecombe. He hit the game tying 3. We got to get more of that. And Embiid's got to find his way, not the hot potato stuff we saw against the Bulls. You know, it was like he got it, and he knows I can't do the ISO ball. I can't do that. But he was also just getting it and back to Maxey, getting it back to Maxey. We can't do that either. It has to be, ball movement. I think we'll work through that because we have the best coach in the Eastern Conference, and I stand by it. They will make an NBA Finals appearance this year, is my thought.
Wow.
Well, you know what? I don't think it's a hot take at all because, as I mentioned to Mitch and to James a couple of weeks ago, I think this East, just because of the situation, with Boston and Milwaukee and Indiana, and even with the Bulls and whatnot, like there's a void in the East right now this season, maybe this season alone, that the Sixers have an opportunity, and if they take advantage of that opportunity, then yeah, I honestly think your take's not completely that much of a hot take because to get to the NBA Finals, you just have to go through the East. So if the East and with this Sixers team, unlike other Sixers teams, there's a lot of depth in this team, and I still feel like Daryl Morey is going to add more depth, youthful depth, athletic depth to this team come trade deadline. And I honestly think that's going to benefit the team more. When you have all the depth that we have, and then you have Joel Embiid, former MVP, Paul George, a really talented player that are your bottom options versus your top options, that's a pretty good place to be. Not many teams in the NBA, let alone the East, have that luxury. And I think if the Sixers, Nick Nurse, and those players, and like you said, Fred, barring injury, you are able to take advantage of that, I think honestly, it's not that far fetched, and that's why I think this might be the season that it can happen. Because I think when you give the Celtics a reset next year, and you give Indiana a reset next year with Halliburton coming back, it may be a lot more difficult to handle that because the East is it's 1 year hiatus, it's 1 year mulligan, and then after that we go back to the way of the beast of the East. So yeah, I agree. We're gonna wrap it up for today. I wanted to first thank very much for Freddy Burns making time to come on the show, talk a little bit of Philly sports. It's a busy time in Philly sports and exciting time in Philly sports. Fred, I want to thank you for coming on and making the time talking with us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I miss doing this stuff. So, got a little kid things to handle, but I will be back at some point doing something because I love it. It's fun.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, brother.
I want to thank James Scorza, amazing producer. I want to say before we go, please, if you haven't already, please like, follow, subscribe, Hardcore Sports Network on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and all your social media platforms. Go and follow and subscribe to Stream Punk Entertainment PA on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and all of the social media platforms. We have today is a busy day for Philly sports with the Flyers and the Sixers. Monday night we have the Philadelphia Eagles. But before Monday night, James, we have another episode of This Week in Flyers Hockey and it's with me, you, and Austin, and it's going to be interesting because um, to see what the Flyers are able to do against Claude Giroux and those Senators today. Um, so we will see you then. And like I said, follow, like, and subscribe. Keep up. And we are the Patterson Ave Sports Show, and we are out. Let's go. Let's go, Birds.
Let's go Flyers too, man. Let's get it.